At one time, dragons, sea monsters, and giant apes were all just fairy tales. But what if they were actually animals that once roamed our planet? And what if some of them still roam the planet today? Today we're diving into 5 creatures that were dismissed as pure mythology until science proved that they were absolutely real. And by the end of this journey, you might start wondering what other impossible creatures are hiding in plain sight. Welcome back to Arnie's Brain Train. I'm Alex Arnold, and today our video is going to get a little weird. Before we dive in, I want to give a special thanks and a shout out to Tyler for suggesting this absolutely fascinating topic. Every single fact that I'm sharing today is backed by real scientific sources. You'll find all of those research links in the description below. Really quick, here's my disclaimer alert. I don't believe in quote-unquote Bigfoot, but we're going to be talking about some Sasquatch-like creatures throughout this. That's kind of the theme. So we're going to follow the same pattern for each of these other creatures that have been discovered. And that pattern is that the local communities knew about these creatures for generations, and Western science will dismiss their knowledge just as primitive superstition. Right now, indigenous communities worldwide are telling stories about large undiscovered primates in remote forests. They call them Sasquatch, Yeti, Yowie, or Almas. So we're going to go ahead and dive on into this weird exploration of all these mythical creatures. Buckle up, this train is about to take off on a journey that's going to change how you think about the impossible. Let's go. Let's start in the deep waters of the ocean, where sailors feared to venture, towards the edges of the map where there be monsters, with the most legendary sea monster of all time, the Kraken. For over 800 years, sailors told terrifying tales of massive tentacled beasts that could drag entire ships to the ocean's depths. Scientists laughed it off as drunken sailors' stories and overactive imaginations. The Kraken appeared in Norse mythology as early as the 12th century. Described as a creature so massive, it was often mistaken for an island. Sailors described tentacles as thick as ship masts, eyes the size of dinner plates, and a body longer than 3 whales. Bishop Pontoppidan wrote in 1752 that the Kraken was incontestably the largest sea monster in the world. Here's the cool part. Sailors from different countries, time periods, and ocean regions were describing remarkably similar creatures. Norwegian fishermen, Portuguese explorers, and British naval officers all reported encounters with massive tentacled beasts. The consistency was striking, yet it sounded ridiculous to land-dwelling scientists, until it wasn't. Fast forward to 2007, when New Zealand fishermen caught something that changed everything. A colossal giant squid with tentacles over 30 feet long and eyes literally the size of dinner plates. Exactly like those crazy sailor stories described. But here's the mind-blowing part. We'd been finding pieces of giant squids for decades without realizing what they meant. We've found dead specimens washed up on the shores, massive tentacle scars on sperm whales, enormous beaks found in whale stomachs. The evidence was there, we just weren't connecting the dots. Marine biologists had been cataloging unknown cephalopod remains for years, not realizing they were looking at proof of the Kraken. Today we know that giant squids can reach lengths of 43 feet, longer than a school bus, and their larger cousins, colossal squids, can grow up to 46 feet long, with tentacles lined with rotating hooks. They live in the deep ocean at depths of 1,000 to 3,000 feet, exactly where sailors reported seeing them during storms that churned up deep waters. The mythical Kraken wasn't mythology. It was accurate marine biology, observed and passed down through oral tradition, through sailors, seamen, and other locals of the sea. These creatures have dinner plate-sized eyes to capture every photon of light in pitch-black depths. They have tentacles like ship masts because they're built to grapple with sperm whales in epic underwater battles. So just think about this. As a former fisherman and seaman myself, every time you hear a crazy story about a sea monster today, remember that 71% of our oceans remain completely unexplored. We know more about Mars than our own ocean floors. What else is down there waiting to be discovered? And here's something that should make you think. If massive 46-foot squids with dinner plate eyes can hide in our oceans for centuries, what could be hiding in our vast unexplored forests and jungles? Now let's travel to the heart of Africa to talk about the gorilla. That's right, at one point in time, even the gorilla was on the list of mythological creatures. Local tribes would tell European explorers about massive, upright walking ape men living deep in the jungle. Europeans called these stories primitive superstition about forest demons. Sound familiar? This is the same dismissive pattern that we'll see over and over again and that we still see. For centuries, African tribes across Central and West Africa described powerful human-like creatures covered in black hair, walking upright, beating their chests, and living in complex family groups. The Fang people call them Ngayena. The Baka people of Cameroon had incredibly detailed knowledge about their behavior, seasonal movements, and dietary preferences. European colonists dismissed these as primitive myths about evil spirits or exaggerated stories about regular monkeys. They assumed primitive people couldn't distinguish between reality and superstition. In 1847, American missionary Thomas Savage obtained skulls from what the locals called Ngayena, which we now know means gorilla. He sent them to anatomist Jeffries Wyman at Harvard, who realized that these weren't from any known animal. The skulls were massive, with pronounced brow ridges and enormous jaw muscles. The scientific community remained deeply skeptical, until explorer Paul Duchaillu brought back an actual gorilla specimen in 1861. Even then, many refused to believe it. The creature was too large, too human-like, too impossible to be real. Here's what's super important to notice. Western science discovered gorillas in the 1840s, but African people had been living alongside them for thousands of years. The Baka people had detailed knowledge of gorilla behavior that wouldn't be scientifically documented until the 1960s, when Diane Fossey began her research. What Westerners called, and still call, mythology was actually sophisticated ecological knowledge passed down through generations. These communities had developed sustainable coexistence practices that modern conservation efforts are only now beginning to understand. This discovery taught scientists a crucial lesson. Indigenous knowledge isn't mythology. It's often advanced science that we don't understand yet. And this brings us to something fascinating happening right now. Indigenous communities across North America have consistent stories about large, upright walking, hair-covered primates. The Lakota call them Chietanka. The Quinault know them as Seteko. Different tribes, different regions, different languages, but remarkably consistent descriptions. Now, I am not saying Sasquatch exists. I want to be crystal clear about that. I don't believe in Bigfoot as it's popularly portrayed. But the idea of an undiscovered large primate is intellectually intriguing, even though I see most of the current evidence as speculation. What we've learned to take seriously is the systematic study of these reports through cryptozoology, a legitimate scientific field that has actually brought us the truth about these 5 creatures we're discussing today, plus many other discoveries. But if a 400-pound gorilla could remain mythical to Western science until the 1840s, it's not unlikely that other large primates might be living in vast, unexplored wilderness areas right now. Let's go ahead and travel to Australia now, where our next discovery is going to show us that the most impossible creatures are sometimes hiding in plain sight. Imagine you're a respected British scientist in 1798, and someone sends you a preserved animal that looks like a beaver's tail stuck onto a duck's body with a poisonous spike. You'd probably think someone was pranking you, right? Just sending you a jackalope in the mail. Well, that's exactly what happened. When the first platypus specimen arrived in London, scientists literally thought it was an elaborate hoax. Multiple animals sewn together by a skilled taxidermist. Dr. George Shaw was so convinced it was fake that he actually took scissors to the specimen, looking for stitches where different animals had been joined together. Can you honestly blame him though? An egg-laying mammal with a duckbill, beaver tail, and venomous spurs sounds like something a 5-year-old would draw. The scientific community was so skeptical that it took nearly 80 years for them to fully accept that platypuses were real, naturally occurring animals. But here's the thing. Aboriginal Australians had known about platypuses for over 40,000 years. 40,000 years! They had names for them in dozens of different languages and sophisticated understanding of their ecology. The Darug people called them Bundabura. Their Dreamtime stories described exactly how these creatures lived, where they nested, and how they hunted. The locals were well aware that platypuses laid eggs long before European science figured it out. They understood their electroreception abilities long before scientists had instruments sensitive enough to even detect bioelectricity. It took Western science basically 100 years to fully understand what Aboriginal people already knew. The platypus is a monotreme, one of only 5 egg-laying animals on Earth. Males have venomous spurs that can inject toxins powerful enough to cause excruciating pain lasting for months. They hunt underwater using electroreception, detecting electrical fields from muscle contractions. They're basically living impossibilities that nature assembled anyway. The platypus taught scientists that nature doesn't follow our expectations. Sometimes the most extraordinary creatures are hiding in plain sight, and locals usually know exactly what they're talking about. This discovery in particular revealed scientific bias. European scientists were so certain that they understood mammalian biology that they couldn't accept evidence contradicting those rules. They assumed their textbooks were complete, their knowledge comprehensive. Which brings us back to our modern mystery. Right now, indigenous communities from the Himalayas to the Pacific Northwest are describing large unknown primates with consistent behavioral patterns. We have no conclusive evidence that Sasquatch exists, and honestly, I don't believe most of the current claims about Bigfoot. But we do have consistent reports from credible witnesses, including wildlife biologists, park rangers, and indigenous trackers who know their ecosystems better than anyone. The intellectual exercise of considering these reports is fascinating, even if most turn out to be misidentifications or hoaxes. If a venomous egg-laying mammal with a duckbill could remain scientifically impossible until the 1800s, maybe we should keep our minds open to rigorous cryptozoological investigation. Continuing for just a moment on this Bigfoot rant, indigenous communities on every inhabited continent except Antarctica have stories about large, hair-covered, upright walking primates. In North America, they're called Sasquatch or Bigfoot. In the Himalayas, they're known as Yeti. In Australia, Aboriginal people speak of the Yowie. In Central Asia, they're called Almas. These aren't modern legends that have been influenced by media. These are traditional stories predating European contact by centuries. The Lummi tribe has Sasquatch stories going back over 1,000 years. Sherpa communities have been talking about Yeti for equally long periods. What's remarkable is the consistency across cultures with no contact. Descriptions typically include bipedal locomotion, 7 to 9 feet tall, covered in dark hair, enormous footprints, nocturnal behavior, omnivorous diet, avoidance of human contact, and association with deep wilderness. Communities separated by oceans are describing remarkably similar creatures. Now, this doesn't prove that these creatures exist, and I want to emphasize, I don't believe in the popular Bigfoot phenomenon. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and we don't have that. But the intellectual framework is intriguing. We have footprint casts showing consistent anatomical features. We have hair samples that don't match known species. We have credible witnesses, including wildlife biologists and park rangers, who stake their professional reputations on their accounts. Most of this is likely misidentification or wishful thinking. But the systematic study through cryptozoology, the same field that validated our 5 creatures today, deserves scientific consideration. New large mammal species are still being discovered. The Saulo wasn't scientifically documented until 1992. the Arunakal macaque was discovered in 2004. If 200-pound mammals can remain hidden from science in the 21st century, the possibility space for larger, more elusive primates isn't zero. We've thoroughly explored less than 5% of the world's forests. Vast wilderness areas in the Pacific Northwest, Siberia, the Himalayas, and Amazon remain virtually unexplored. Exactly the remote, food-rich environments where small populations of large primates might persist undetected. Alright, let's hop back on the train to our creatures that have been discovered, and we're going to journey to the remote Indonesian islands, where our next discovery proves that real dragons have been living among us. Picture stories of land dragons reaching 10 feet long, with venomous bites that could kill water buffalo. Sounds like pure fantasy? Well, locals had been talking about these land crocodiles for centuries. Indonesian fishermen told detailed stories of massive lizards on Komodo and nearby islands that could take down deer, pigs, and humans. They called them ora, or buaya darat, land crocodile. Local communities had developed sophisticated strategies for coexisting with these apex predators. They knew the dragon's hunting patterns, seasonal behaviors, and preferred prey. Fishermen knew which beaches to avoid. Villagers understood how to construct homes that would deter dragon attacks. Dutch colonial administrators heard these stories, but then filed them under local superstition. The European mindset couldn't conceive of giant venomous lizards existing in the modern world. Everything changed in 1910 when Dutch Lieutenant Steven van Hansbroek was sent to investigate these reports. What he found was a 7-foot-long lizard unlike anything in the scientific record. By 1912, the Komodo dragon was officially recognized, but locals had been managing their relationship with these apex predators for generations. Komodo dragons can grow up to 10 feet long and weigh 150 pounds. They're the largest living lizards on Earth. They're ambush predators with bites containing over 50 types of bacteria, creating potent, slow-acting venom. They can smell carrion from 2.5 miles away and run up to 12 miles per hour in short bursts. They're basically slightly smaller, real-life dragons without wings and fire breathing. They can take down prey much larger than themselves through powerful jaws, venomous saliva, and patient hunting strategies. Today, Komodo dragons are endangered, with only about 3,000 left in the wild. Indonesian communities who knew about them all along are now crucial conservation partners, sharing traditional ecological knowledge that helps scientists understand dragon behavior. This reinforces a crucial point. If 10-foot venomous dragons can remain mythical to European science well into the 20th century, what other apex predators might be living in remote wilderness areas? The Komodo dragon inhabited well-known islands with human populations, yet it remains scientifically unknown for centuries. For our final creature, we're exploring a discovery so shocking it revolutionized how science thinks about extinction and survival. We're going back 400 million years to meet a creature that scientists declared extinct for 66 million years. But fishermen in the Indian Ocean had been catching gombessa for generations, never realizing they were pulling up living fossils that predated dinosaurs. The coelacanth was known only from fossils, dating back 400 million years, older than dinosaurs, trees, and insects. Scientists believe that it went extinct 66 million years ago with the dinosaurs. It was an index fossil, used to date rock layers because everyone knew when it disappeared from Earth. Everything changed on December 22, 1938, when museum curator Marjorie Courtney Latimer was examining a fisherman's catch in South Africa. She spotted something extraordinary, a steel blue fish with unusual lobed fins and armor-like scales. After consulting with ichthyologist J.L.B. Smith, they realized that they were looking at a living coelacanth, a creature science had declared extinct for 66 million years. Smith later wrote, "I would not have been more surprised if I had seen a dinosaur walking down the street." But once again, here's the familiar pattern. Local cormorant fishermen had been catching coelacanths regularly and knew them as gombessa. They weren't rare to local fishing communities, they were just another fish. The fish that shocked the scientific world was literally dinner to local communities. Coelacanth flesh was considered poor eating, so fishermen often discarded them. The most significant fish discovery of the 20th century was being thrown away in the trash. Coelacanths are living fossils, essentially unchanged for 400 million years. They have lobed fins with bone structures similar to early tetrapods, providing clues about how life transitioned from sea to land. They can live over 100 years and don't reproduce until they're 40 to 80 years old. This discovery, of course, revolutionized how scientists think about extinction and the completeness of our knowledge about Earth's biodiversity. It proved that creatures from the deep past can survive hidden in refugia, unknown to science, for millions of years, longer than thought possible. So let's bring it all together, because what we've discovered and what we've learned today isn't just about individual animals, it's about scientific knowledge, indigenous wisdom, and how much mystery still surrounds us in 2025. I want you to first notice the absolute consistency. In every case, local communities knew about these creatures long before Western science discovered them. The giant squid matched sailor descriptions perfectly. African tribes had detailed gorilla knowledge for millennia. Aboriginal Australians understood platypus behavior for 40,000 years. Indonesian islanders coexisted with Komodo dragons for centuries, and cormorant fishermen regularly caught extinct coelacanths. In each case, the scientific establishment didn't just ignore this knowledge, they actively dismissed it as primitive superstition or impossible stories. Right now, we're potentially living through the same pattern, with reports of large, unknown animals worldwide. Indigenous communities from the Pacific Northwest to the Himalayas are sharing detailed knowledge about creatures that mainstream science considers impossible. The consistency of these reports across cultures and centuries mirrors exactly what we saw with every creature in today's journey. We don't have definitive proof that Sasquatch exists. And honestly, I don't think we'll ever find Bigfoot. That would require physical evidence meeting rigorous scientific standards. But we do have a historical pattern that shows cryptozoology as a legitimate field has repeatedly validated creatures once dismissed as impossible. The intellectual exercise of examining these reports systematically, even when most are likely misidentifications, has proven valuable. It's the same methodical approach to impossible creatures that brought us today's 5 discoveries. Scientists estimate that we've only discovered about 20% of Earth's species. That means millions of animals are out there right now, unknown to science, but possibly known to local communities. We're discovering 18,000 new species every year, and many discoveries come from taking indigenous knowledge seriously. The Amazon alone contains millions of undescribed species. The deep ocean remains largely unexplored. Vast wilderness areas in Canada, Siberia, Alaska, and the Himalayas remain virtually unstudied, exactly where large primates or other animals might persist undetected. While I might be a skeptic about things like Bigfoot, this journey shows that cryptozoology, the systematic study of hidden or unknown animals, deserves respect as a scientific discipline. It's this field that brought us validation of every creature we discussed today. The intellectual framework of investigating impossible animals has proven valuable. The natural world has consistently proven more mysterious than our scientific models predict. Nature seems to delight in creating creatures that break our rules. We now live in an age where new species are found regularly and ancient creatures thought extinct are rediscovered. The next great cryptozoological discovery might be happening right now. And that's it, guys, for our journey through creatures that went from mythology to scientific reality. If this expanded your mind like it expanded mine, smash that like button and let me know in the comments which discovery surprised you most. Are there any mythical creatures that you think science might prove real someday? And I'm curious, do you think cryptozoology as a scientific field deserves more respect? Even if you're skeptical about scientific claims like Bigfoot, just like I am. I certainly don't believe in the popular Sasquatch stories, but I find the systematic study of these reports intellectually fascinating. I'm also genuinely curious. Have any of you had encounters with unexplained animals? Or do you know indigenous stories about creatures that science hasn't validated yet? Share your thoughts in the comments because this community is all about exploring the mysteries that surround us. Remember, this is Arnie's Brain Train, where we transform curious but why questions into mind-blowing discoveries. If you're hungry for more adventures through science, history, and mysteries of our incredible world, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We've got new brain-expanding content every week that'll make your neurons do backflips through space and time. All of the scientific sources and research papers I mentioned are linked in the description below. Dive deeper if you want to explore these discoveries further. And hey, share this with someone who loves mysteries or anyone who's ever wondered what other incredible creatures might be hiding in plain sight. Once again, special thanks to Tyler for this amazing topic suggestion that took us on such an incredible journey. Until next time, keep asking, but why? Keep your mind open to the impossible, and remember, the world isn't always this simple, but it's always this interesting. Who knows, maybe the next great cryptozoological discovery will come from someone watching this very video. All aboard for more adventures on Arnie's Brain Train, and we'll see you guys there. Bye.